Trying to save money, nigga? You don't want to pay for the lawn to get cut, huh?
Let me ask you
The AC broken in the motherfucker.
Let me ask you this.
Welcome back to the show where the tea is always steaming and the drama never ends. Today, we're diving into one of hip-hop's most enduring feuds, Rick Ross versus 50 Cent. This isn't just some old beef over diss tracks or business deals. This is a rivalry that's been simmering for over a decade, and now it's boiling over with explosive new revelations. Rick Ross, the self-proclaimed boss who built an empire on his swagger and power moves, always seemed untouchable. But his own baby mama has just dropped some shocking information that could change everything. The same Rick Ross who flaunts his wealth and influence at every turn is now facing allegations that might keep him up at night. And when Ross finally made his move, it wasn't just about saving face, it was about survival. But here's the kicker. The whole feud didn't start over music, money, or street-level drama. It began with something so simple, it's almost hard to believe. A single glance. Back in 2008 at the BET Awards, Rick Ross saw 50 Cent. Just one look, and Ross decided there was a problem. The twist? 50 Cent didn't even know he'd been spotted, let alone offended anyone. In fact, later on, he admitted he didn't even remember seeing Ross that night. But Ross? He took that look as a sign of disrespect. And in hip-hop, that's all it takes to spark a full-blown war. And let's be honest, if you're picking a fight, 50 Cent is not the man you want on the other side. It's 50 Cent we're talking about here. This man doesn't just win feuds, he annihilates his opponents, leaving no path for their comeback. From the moment Rick Ross declared war, 50 moved like a grandmaster, ensuring that Ross's days of untouchable dominance were over. But what exactly did Ross's baby mama reveal? And why has this so-called boss been nervously watching his back ever since? At the height of his career, Rick Ross was living the rap mogul dream. He had 2 platinum albums under his belt. His Maybach music empire was rapidly expanding, and he'd firmly cemented his image as the ultimate hip-hop powerhouse. Ross believed he was on top of the world, untouchable, respected, and feared. But then came the infamous moment at the 2008 BET Awards, the moment that would ignite a decade-long feud. Call it paranoia, an inflated ego, or just a bad read on the situation. Ross somehow convinced himself that 50 Cent had disrespected him with a single look. Instead of shrugging it off, Ross saw this as the opportunity to launch an attack on one of the most notorious and ruthless figures in the game. That's where it all unraveled, because here's the shocking twist. 50 Cent had no idea what Ross was talking about. In later interviews, 50 admitted he didn't even remember seeing Ross at the event. He was that unconcerned. But Ross? He grabbed onto that perceived slight and wouldn't let go, setting in motion a chain of events that would change everything. Rick Ross underestimated one critical thing about 50 Cent. He doesn't just clap back and walk away. When 50 goes to war, he goes nuclear. It's not just a feud for him. It's a calculated, high-stakes chess game where he moves pieces to ensure total domination. Ross may have thought he was cooking up some buzzworthy drama, a strategic way to tie his name to one of hip-hop's heavyweights and boost his own profile. But what he got was a war he couldn't control. This wasn't just a few throwaway lines in an interview. Ross went all in. He dropped mafia music, a diss track that didn't merely boast about his status. It took a direct shot at one of 50's most personal and painful controversies. Ross zeroed in on the infamous 2008 house fire. At the time, 50's ex-girlfriend, Shaniqua Tompkins, publicly accused him of being behind the blaze that destroyed her home with 6 people inside. While authorities never pinned the crime on 50 Cent, the rumors never fully faded. And Ross? He exploited that unresolved tragedy, rapping about it in a way that was anything but subtle. In doing so, Ross wasn't just pushing buttons, he was smashing them. He wasn't just starting beef, he was stirring the pot with gasoline. This wasn't playful shade, it was a calculated, below-the-belt jab intended to frame 50 Cent as the ultimate villain. And once those lyrics hit the airwaves, there was no going back. But Ross didn't stop there. Feeling invincible, he doubled down, flaunting his dominance and talking like he'd already won the battle. He went on a media blitz, boasting in interviews, dismissing 50 Cent as a relic of the past, and declaring himself the undisputed new king of the streets. It was the kind of hubris that could only lead to one thing: a brutal counterstrike from someone who never plays fair and never lets a slight go unanswered. What Ross didn't see coming was the sheer force of 50 Cent's retaliation. He wasn't dealing with someone who just fired back with a diss track and moved on. He was up against a strategist who dismantles his opponents piece by piece. Ross thought this was his chance to stir up some buzz, attach his name to a major rapper, and come out on top. But 50 Cent doesn't play those games. He plays for keeps. Ross's Mafia music was no ordinary diss track. It was personal, diving straight into one of 50 Cent's darkest controversies, the 2008 house fire. Shaniqua Tompkins, 50's ex and mother of his child, had already made headlines accusing 50 of causing the fire that consumed her home with 6 people inside. Although investigators never pinned it on him, the whispers lingered. And Ross? He grabbed those whispers and turned them into ammunition. This wasn't just a lyrical jab, it was a calculated strike at 50's character. Ross was trying to paint him as a heartless monster, but that was a costly mistake. If there's one thing 50 Cent doesn't do, it's let an insult slide. Ross may have felt untouchable, even boastful, as he made rounds claiming victory before the battle had even begun. But that arrogance blinded him to the tidal wave that was about to hit. 50 didn't just clap back, he went in for the kill. His first move? Shatter Ross's street king image. Ross had carefully crafted a persona of a hustler turned mogul, a man who built an empire from the ground up. But 50 had something that could destroy that narrative, proof that Ross's whole backstory was fabricated. Photos of Rick Ross in a correctional officer uniform hit the internet like a bomb. The rapper who claimed to run the streets had actually worked for the system. The internet erupted, and 50 made sure everyone saw those pictures. He called Ross out publicly, mocked him in interviews, and flooded social media with memes, videos, and diss tracks. The damage was catastrophic. Ross's brand, the larger-than-life boss, was crumbling, but 50 wasn't done. He wanted more. So he turned to the one person who could spill the tea: Ross's own baby mama, Tia Kemp. Tia had nothing to lose, and she wasn't holding back. Sitting down with 50, she delivered a raw, unfiltered account of who Rick Ross really was. Her revelations painted a very different picture from the man Ross had sold to the world. And with Tia's words, 50's calculated destruction of Ross's image was complete. Tia Kemp didn't hold back. According to her, Rick Ross's so-called lavish lifestyle was nothing but a show. Behind the scenes, he was leasing cars, renting mansions, and borrowing jewelry, all just to maintain the illusion of being a kingpin. His empire wasn't built on solid ground, it was all smoke and mirrors. And as if that wasn't enough, Tia confirmed what many had long suspected: the boss was faking it. And Rick Ross's response? Silence. Deafening silence. He had no way to undo the revelations, no way to take back the truth that was now spreading like wildfire. 50 Cent had pulled off the unthinkable, and the internet ran with it. The scandal was everywhere, and the damage to Ross's credibility was beyond repair. Officer Ricky became the punchline of every meme, every diss track, every joke in the hip-hop world. Ross's image, his entire brand, was ridiculed and mocked. And just when you thought 50 Cent had won it all, he made a move that crossed the line. 50 decided to take the feud beyond career-destroying exposés and into personal humiliation. He leaked a private tape featuring another one of Ross's baby mamas, Lastonia Leviston. But this time, 50's plan backfired. Ross might have brushed off the Officer Ricky memes, but Lastonia wasn't having it. She took 50 Cent to court, suing him for emotional distress. The case wasn't just a loss for 50's reputation, it hit him where it hurt most: his wallet. The court ruled against him, slapping him with a massive $5 million judgment. For the first time in this long-standing feud, 50 Cent took a real L. The financial blow was so crushing that he ended up filing for bankruptcy. It was the one misstep that cost him big. Meanwhile, Rick Ross, he just kept moving forward. He kept dropping tracks, steering clear of the drama, and carrying himself like none of it had touched him. Surprisingly, The fans seemed to move on too. Sure, the Officer Ricky Diggs left a mark, but Ross still had his music, his loyal following, and a brand that kept on growing. Fast forward to now, just when it seemed like the beef had cooled, Tia Kemp came back swinging. On Instagram Live, she dropped a bombshell. Rick Ross is still scared of 50 Cent. Why? Because 50 knows too much. Tia wasn't holding back. She alleged that Ross had deep, dark secrets he'd been fighting to keep hidden. And just when you thought the drama couldn't get messier, old photos from Tia's 2009 Smooth magazine shoot resurfaced and reignited the chaos. These weren't just your average baby mama thirst traps, they were scandalous enough to set the internet ablaze all over again. But the real jaw-dropper wasn't what Tia was wearing, though the barely there lace, sheer sparkles, and red heels were certainly a spectacle. No, the shock came from who was behind the camera: 50 Cent himself. That's right, Rick Ross's #1 nemesis was not only curating this racy photo shoot, he made it clear exactly who was pulling the strings. And just when you thought the drama couldn't get any more over the top, Smooth magazine upped the ante. The issue dropped with a headline as provocative as the photos: "Where's the beef?" But the real knockout punch came with a dagger of a tagline. Guest editor 50 Cent introduces Rick Ross's baby mama, Tia. 50 didn't just help Tia land the cover, he made it unmistakably clear that he was behind it. This wasn't just petty, this was a legendary level of trolling. Just when it seemed like things were cooling down, the beef between Rick Ross and 50 Cent reignited in a whole new way. The latest drama, Ross linking up with Big Meech fresh out of prison. And if you know anything about 50 Cent, you already know this wasn't going to sit well. Why? Because 50 is the executive producer of the BMF TV series, the show that played a huge role in keeping the Black Mafia family's legacy alive while Meech was locked up. So for Meech to walk out of prison and immediately pose for a photo with Ross, that felt like pure betrayal to 50. And in classic 50 style, he wasted no time firing back. He jumped on Instagram and posted a shady image of a giant rat, captioned, "I think I'm Big Meech." The level of disrespect? Unmatched. But that wasn't even the worst of it. In the same post, 50 called out Meech for allegedly cutting ties with someone very important: Tammy Cowens. If you're wondering who Tammy is, hold on tight. This is where things get wild. Tammy wasn't just Meech's assistant, she was his business partner, the one handling his affairs from behind the scenes. The twist? She supposedly flipped and became an FBI informant. And if that wasn't enough chaos, Rick Ross himself joined the fray. After seeing how worked up 50 was over Meech's photo with Ross, the Miami rapper couldn't help but laugh and throw fuel on the fire. The back and forth between these two? Non-stop, and it just keeps getting messier. But the real wild card in all this? Tia Kemp. If there's one person who seems to enjoy dragging Ross as much as 50 does, it's his own baby mama. And this time, Tia went for the jugular. She claimed that Ross was tied up in the same scandal that got Diddy slapped with those federal trafficking charges. Yes, she dragged Ross right into the Diddy freak-off party mess, adding another layer of jaw-dropping accusations to this already explosive feud. Tia wasn't subtle. She publicly mocked Ross, telling him he should probably check in on his buddy Diddy. The shade was real. She called out their wild parties and that strange bromance they used to parade on social media. But this wasn't the first time Tia put Ross on blast. She'd already hopped on Instagram Live, tearing into him for keeping quiet about Diddy's mess. She accused him of pretending not to see what was happening. And she brought receipts. Tia didn't hold back, dropping names and showing she wasn't afraid of the fallout. But then she took it even further. Tia implied that Ross wasn't just guilty by association, she suggested he was involved in orchestrating hits on people. And here's where things went from messy to downright ominous. She said she was ready to blow the whistle, even hinting that she might involve federal agents. It didn't stop there. Tia made a chilling claim, mentioning a murder that had fans absolutely floored. She brought up a name, Ms. Carroll, saying this woman was killed after leaving her mother's house and implying a direct connection to Ross and his associates. And if that wasn't shocking enough, she pointed to another violent incident. a man shot right in front of Black House, which she tied to Ross's circle. Then Tia took her revelations to the mic. On an episode of Carisha, Please, she went even deeper, talking about her life co-parenting with Ross. According to Tia, she's been dealing with this dynamic for 18 long years, and she's had enough. She painted a picture of trying to raise a child while the other parent is constantly in and out, showing up unpredictably like a twisted game of peekaboo. Tia made it clear, she's done holding back. She wasn't just out here chasing flashy headlines, she was ready to lay out every piece of dirty laundry Ross had kept hidden. According to her, Rick Ross has more kids than he's ever let on. In fact, she even claimed Ross fathered a secret child with a Russian woman, a truth he's allegedly been keeping on the low. But this goes deeper than just Ross being a father. Tia accused him of putting his ego and his image above his children. She told Young Miami about the time Ross tried to send their son off to a random college in Mississippi, not because it was the best choice for their child, but because it made Ross look good. And if that wasn't bad enough, Tia painted a heartbreaking picture of their son feeling abandoned, despite growing up in the public eye. She revealed that their son, now attending an HBCU, has to explain to his classmates why his famous dad didn't even show up for his high school graduation. Think about that. A kid who had Ross cheering for him at football games, only to be left hanging on one of the biggest milestones of his life. Tia wasn't just taking shots at Ross's parenting, she was calling out how he treated their son like a pawn in his power games. This wasn't just about child support or a messy co-parenting feud, it was about Ross using their son as a prop for his public image, then disappearing when it came time to be a real father. And if you thought Rick Ross was the only target here, think again. Tia also had plenty to say about Ross's sister, Renee. According to Tia, Renee had been meddling in their co-parenting situation from the very beginning, making backhanded comments, inserting herself into decisions, and generally stirring the pot whenever she got the chance. Tia wasn't just annoyed by Renee's behavior, she was outright done with it. She's had enough. Tia flat out called Renee out, claiming that Ross's sister isn't protecting the family, she's just making things worse. But the real shocker? Tia didn't stop at words. She revealed that things had actually turned physical before. She described an altercation with one of Ross's other baby mamas. This wasn't just some petty argument, it escalated into a serious incident, including allegations of child neglect and tangled legal troubles. For Tia, that was the final straw. After years of dealing with Ross's absence, broken promises, public image games, and his sister's constant meddling, she's reached her breaking point. 18 years of staying quiet, trying to keep the peace, and biting her tongue? No more. Tia is done keeping secrets. She's telling her side, and she's got the receipts to prove it. But just when you thought the situation couldn't get any more chaotic, Tia dropped another bombshell. According to her, Rick Ross has been actively trying to silence her. She revealed that Ross has sent her cease and desist letters, threatening legal action if she doesn't stop airing out his secrets. Her response? She laughed in his face. Tia made it crystal clear she's not scared of his legal threats. In fact, she openly mocked his attempts, telling him to take his paperwork and shove it. By this point, the damage has already been done. The internet is ablaze, and people are piecing it all together. Ross's attempts at damage control have come too late. Now everyone is asking the real questions. Could Ross's past be darker than he ever admitted? Is he still hiding something significant? Did 50 Cent really win this long-running feud? Or has Ross managed to endure in spite of all the public humiliation? And of course, there's the lingering mystery. Why is Ross so afraid of 50? More importantly, what does 50 know that has Ross looking over his shoulder? One thing's clear, this saga isn't ending anytime soon. So what do you think? Is Rick Ross desperately trying to bury his secrets, or is Tia simply stirring the pot? Did 50 utterly destroy Ross's reputation, or has Ross somehow found a way to bounce back? And just what kind of dirt does 50 Cent have that keeps Ross up at night? Sound off in the comments below, and don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications. You won't want to miss what's coming next. Trust me, it's going to be even messier.